If you're a designer right now, you've probably felt some version of unease. You open a tool, type a prompt, and in seconds, something appears that used to take you hours to produce. And somewhere underneath the convenience, there's a quieter question sitting with you. What happens to my role in all of this? I'm not going to tell you that AI is nothing to worry about, and I'm also not going to tell you that your career is over. Both of those answers are too simple, and honestly, a little lazy. What I want to do today is look at this clearly, the real opportunity and the real threat, so you can make decisions based on what's actually happening, not on fear or hype. Let's talk about where graphic design is actually heading. Let's start with what's genuinely exciting, because there is real opportunity here. For the first time, the distance between an idea and a visible draft of that idea has nearly disappeared. What used to require hours of manual production can now happen in minutes. That means more time for the part of design that actually requires a human: thinking, judgment, taste, and problem solving. Designers who learn to use these tools well are producing more variations, testing more directions, and moving through early-stage exploration faster than ever before. That's not a small thing. The exploration phase used to be the most time-expensive part of the process. Now it's becoming the cheapest. For designers willing to adapt, this is genuinely more leverage than any previous generation of tools has offered. Now let's talk about the real threat, because pretending it doesn't exist isn't helpful either. The work that's most at risk is the work that was purely executional: production design with no strategic thinking attached, resizing assets, templated social posts, basic layout work with clear, repeatable rules. If your value as a designer was primarily, "I can make this look good quickly," that specific value is shrinking. Not because your taste doesn't matter, but because the tools are closing the gap on execution speed faster than most people expected. This is the uncomfortable part. Some of what used to be billable, dependable work is becoming a feature inside a tool instead of a service someone pays a person for. That's a real shift, and it's already happening in parts of the industry. Here's something worth remembering. Design has been through disruptive shifts before. Desktop publishing software displaced the need for manual typesetting. Stock photography reduced demand for certain kinds of original photography. Templates and drag-and-drop tools made basic design accessible to people without formal training. Each time, a portion of the work that used to require a specialist became accessible to anyone. And each time, the designers who survived weren't the ones who resisted the tool. They were the ones who moved their value further up the chain, from production towards judgment, strategy, and taste. What's different this time is the speed. Previous shifts happened over a decade. This one is compressing into a few years. The pattern is the same. The runway to adapt is just shorter. So what's actually durable? What part of design doesn't get replaced by a tool, no matter how good the tool gets? Judgment. The ability to look at 5 options and know which one actually serves the strategy, the brand, and the audience, not just which one looks polished. Context. Understanding the business behind the design. Why this brand? Why this audience? Why this moment? AI can generate options. It can't sit in a room with a client and understand what they're actually afraid of or what they really need to communicate. And taste, which sounds vague but is actually a deeply trained sense of what works, built from years of looking, making, and getting feedback. That's not something you prompt your way into. It's earned. These 3 things, judgment, context, and taste, are becoming more valuable precisely because execution is becoming less scarce. This means the shape of a design career is shifting. The old model rewarded people who could execute reliably and quickly. The new model rewards people who can direct, who can use these tools as an extension of their judgment rather than a replacement for it. In practice, this might mean spending less time pushing pixels and more time understanding the strategic problem before you ever open a tool. It might mean your value shows up earlier in the process, in the thinking, the positioning, the direction, rather than purely in the final execution. It also means collaboration is changing. Designers are increasingly expected to work alongside AI tools the way a creative director works alongside a team, setting direction, reviewing output, and refining what comes back, rather than producing everything from scratch. This isn't a smaller role, it's a different one. And it requires a different kind of skill development than design school traditionally prepared people for. The risk isn't AI itself. The risk is standing still while it improves around you. If you spend the next 2 years treating these tools as something to ignore or something beneath your skill level, you're not protecting your value. You're just delaying the moment you have to catch up, while the gap between where you are and where the industry has moved keeps widening. The designers who will struggle most aren't the ones with less talent. They're the ones who refuse to update how they work, because doing so feels like an admission that something has changed. Something has changed. That's not a controversial statement anymore. The only real choice is whether you adapt on your own terms, now, while you have time to be thoughtful about it, or later, under pressure, when the choice has been made for you. So, what does this mean practically, starting now? First, get fluent with these tools, even if you don't love them yet. Fluency gives you options. It lets you decide where AI fits into your process instead of reacting to it from a place of unfamiliarity. Second, invest deliberately in the things that don't automate. Your strategic thinking, your understanding of business and brand, your ability to explain why a decision works, not just present that it does. These are becoming your real differentiators. Third, start positioning yourself less as someone who produces design and more as someone who directs outcomes. That shift in language matters because it reflects a real shift in where your value actually sits. None of this requires panic. It requires intention, and it requires starting now, while you still have the runway to do it on your own terms. The future of graphic design isn't a story about machines replacing creativity. It's a story about what kind of creativity actually gets rewarded going forward. Production is becoming cheap, judgment is becoming rare, and rare is always where the value moves. This isn't the end of design as a serious career. It's a narrowing of what counts as valuable inside it. The designers who understand that distinction early will have a real advantage over the ones who wait to see how it plays out. You don't need to have this all figured out today. You just need to start moving in the direction of judgment, context, and taste, and let the execution tools support that instead of competing with it. If this gave you a clearer way to think about where things are heading, subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of conversation I want to keep having here. Honest, balanced, and built for people thinking seriously about where this industry is going. I'll see you in the next one.